Laura Vance had been an emergency dispatch operator for 12 years. She was used to hearing terror in people's voices, the screams of car crash survivors, the muffled sobs of burglary victims, the desperate pleas of frantic parents. She had learned to build a mental wall between herself and the horror flowing through her headset. It was a freezing, rain-slick Thursday night at the Metro Dispatch Center. The clocks on the wall read precisely 2:14 a.m. Most of the floor was quiet, illuminated only by the faint blue glow of dozens of computer monitors. Rain beat rhythmically against the reinforced glass windows. An incoming emergency call line flashed red on Laura's console. Line 4. She pressed her headset button and spoke in her standard, calm professional tone. 911 emergency. What is your location? There was no screaming on the line. No panic. Only the slow, heavy sound of breathing. Then, a deep, raspy voice spoke with terrifying calm. I am reporting an active homicide in progress. You need to dispatch units immediately. Laura's fingers danced across a mechanical keyboard, opening the incident log. So, stay on the line. What is the address of the emergency? The caller paused for 2 slow seconds. When he spoke again, his voice dropped an octave lower. 404 Elm Street, Oak Ridge Subdivision. Laura's fingers froze over her keyboard. Her breath caught in her chest. 404 Elm Street was a 2-story craftsman house with a blue front door and a tire swing in the front yard. It was her house. Her husband, Mark, was asleep in the master bedroom upstairs. Her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was fast asleep in the adjacent bedroom, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. So, Laura managed to whisper, her professional wall crumbling instantly. Sir, repeat the address. You heard me clearly, Laura, the caller whispered. He knew her name. 404 Elm Street. The front door was unlocked. I'm standing in the hallway right now. The hardwood floors are very quiet tonight. A wave of icy adrenaline surged through Laura's veins. Sweat broke out across her forehead as her heart hammered violently against her ribs. She was sitting in a windowless control room 12 miles away, completely helpless, listening to a stranger inside her own home. Laura forced her trembling left hand onto the silent emergency override button beneath her desk. She signaled her supervisor, Sergeant Miller, who was walking down the central aisle with a cup of coffee. Without making a sound, Laura pointed to her secondary monitor and typed rapid text. Caller is inside MY house. 404 Elm Street. Husband and daughter inside. Send units now. Sergeant Miller's eyes widened in horror. He instantly turned around and sprinted toward the tactical dispatch desk to mobilize all available police units in the sector. Laura kept her voice as steady as humanly possible, knowing that any hint of panic might trigger the intruder. So, why are you in that house? What do you want? 10 years. Laura, the voice rasped softly over the static. 10 years in a cold, windowless cell at State Penitentiary. You probably don't remember the case files you processed when you were a rookie analyst. You logged the digital evidence that put Julian Cross away for life. The name hit Laura like a physical blow. Julian Cross. 10 years ago, he was the leader of a high-tech home invasion ring known as the Phantom Crew. Laura had been a junior digital forensics clerk who uncovered the encrypted server location that led to his arrest. At his sentencing, Cross had stared directly at the prosecution table and whispered a vow. I will take everything from everyone involved. Yesterday morning, a news alert had flashed briefly on the precinct monitors. A transport van carrying state prisoners had crashed during a storm transfer. One inmate had escaped into the woods. Julian Cross. Julian! Laura stammered, her eyes filling with tears as she stared at her desk photo of Lily. Julian, please. They are innocent. My daughter is 7 years old. Please don't touch them. I'm standing right outside her bedroom door. Laura, the voice replied smoothly. The sound of a heavy brass door handle turning slowly echoed through her headset. She sleeps so peacefully, doesn't she? She has her father's eyes. Laura slammed her hand against her desk, fighting back a scream. "Do not open that door." Meanwhile, inside the pitch-black master bedroom at 404 Elm Street, Mark Vance slowly opened his eyes. A cold draft was blowing through the house, rustling the heavy curtains. Mark reached across the mattress. Laura's side was empty, as expected for her night shift. But then he heard it, a low, rhythmic creaking sound coming from the wooden staircase leading down to the foyer. Creak, creak, creak. Mark sat up, his heart thumping against his ribs. "Laura," he called out softly into the darkness. "Did you come home early?" No response, only the steady pitter-patter of freezing rain against the window pane. Mark swung his legs over the edge of the bed and picked up his heavy metal flashlight from the nightstand. Barefoot and silent, he stepped out into the hallway. The house was freezing. The thermostat digital display in the hallway was dead, its wires severed from the wall panel. Downstairs in the kitchen, a faint yellow light flickered. Mark moved toward the top of the stairs, keeping his back against the wall, pointing his unlit flashlight down into the darkness. As he reached the mid-landing, he caught a sudden scent in the air, the sharp metallic smell of wet rain, mixed with cheap tobacco and muddy boots. Someone had entered through the basement storm door. High above in the dispatch center, Laura saw her home automation panel light up. Her smart home hub was registering motion sensors in the lower hallway. "Mark, no." Laura gasped into her headset, though her audio line to the house was one way. "Don't go downstairs." She frantically tapped her dispatch keyboard, trying to trigger the smart hallway lights to flash red as a warning code they had established years ago. But Cross's digital override was blocking her commands. She could only watch the red motion sensor dots creep closer and closer to the bottom of the staircase where her husband was standing. Downstairs, a shadow detached itself from the dark kitchen doorway. A heavy iron crowbar scraped against the tile floor with a sound that sent chills down Mark's spine. In the dispatch center, red emergency alerts began flashing on the master map screen. 4 Mark police cruisers were roaring through the rain toward 404 Elm Street, sirens blaring, their arrival estimated at 8 minutes. 8 minutes was an eternity. Laura pulled up her smart home security camera app on her third monitor. Her hands trembled so violently she mistyped her passcode twice. Finally, the live video feed connected. The camera in the upstairs hallway showed dark, empty shadows. The hallway nightlight flickered faintly, but as Laura zoomed in on the camera feed outside Lily's room, her brow furrowed in sudden confusion. The hallway was completely empty. There was no tall man in a raincoat standing outside Lily's door. The door handle was completely still. Laura stared at the live video stream, then back at her audio waveform monitor. The voice on the phone was still talking, describing the exact plush rabbit in Lily's arms, the pink wall paint, the sound of the rain hitting her bedroom window. "How do you know what she looks like?" Laura whispered, a strange, sickening realization beginning to form in her mind. "Where are you?" "I told you." "Laura," the raspy voice answered. "I'm right here. I can hear every breath you take." Laura slowly turned her eyes away from her home security feed and looked around the dispatch center. The room was vast, filled with rows of empty desks, partitioned cubicles, and glowing monitors. Only 4 operators were working the graveyard shift tonight. To her left sat Dave, a veteran operator who was muted on a medical call. To her right, 2 rows back, sat a quiet, newly hired night shift technician who had been transferred from the state IT department 2 weeks ago. The technician was wearing a heavy dark hoodie. He was leaning back in his chair, holding a cell phone up to his ear. And as Laura watched him in terror, she saw the faint blue glow of her own home security camera system mirrored in his glasses. The caller wasn't inside her house. He had hacked her home security camera system weeks ago. He was watching her daughter through the compromised camera feed on his phone while sitting 30 feet away from her inside the locked, high-security 911 dispatch building. Julian Cross hadn't just escaped prison. He had infiltrated the emergency communications infrastructure of the entire city. Laura's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She kept her eyes fixed on her monitor, pretending she hadn't noticed the hooded man 2 rows behind her. "You're not at my house," Laura whispered into her microphone, keeping her voice barely audible. "You hacked my camera feed." "Hello?" Sinister laugh filled her headset. The hooded technician 2 rows back slowly leaned forward in his chair. "Very smart, Laura," the voice over the line admitted. "You always were the brightest analyst in the room. But discovering where I am doesn't save your family." "What do you mean?" Laura asked, her blood running cold. "Do you really think I came back just to kill your family myself?" The voice sneered. "My partner, the one who escaped the transport van with me, is at your house. He's downstairs right now in your kitchen with a crowbar, and I am controlling the security system from this terminal. If I press one key, your house's electronic fire alarms will trigger, the doors will magnetic lock from the outside, and the gas line valves will open." On her secondary monitor, Laura saw the SWAT cruisers drawing closer on the GPS map, 2 minutes away from 404 Elm Street. But if the killer inside the house realized police were arriving, or if Cross triggered the remote gas system, her family would be dead before officers could kick down the door. Laura needed to disarm the remote control server before SWAT arrived at her doorstep. Laura's mind raced back 10 years to Interrogation Room B at the precinct, the night Julian Cross had been captured after a bloody 6-month crime spree across 3 states. Back then, Cross wasn't just a common burglar. He was a former military communications specialist who had turned his tactical training into a high-stakes extortion ring. He had specialized in studying his victims for months, learning their daily routines, their family schedules, their deepest phobias, before striking with terrifying precision. Laura had been 22 years old, a junior digital analyst assigned to organize thousands of intercepted radio logs. It was Laura who noticed a microscopic pattern in the encrypted radio frequencies. Cross was using municipal utility frequencies to bypass home security alarms. When Cross was brought into the interrogation room in heavy leg irons, he had refused to speak to the lead homicide detectives. He had demanded to see the analyst who uncovered his frequency protocol. Laura remembered walking into that cold, sterile room. Cross had sat across the metal table, his eyes unblinking, a cold, unnatural smile playing on his lips. "You have a very sharp mind, Miss Vance," Cross had whispered, his voice smooth as silk despite the heavy chains binding his wrists. "Most people look at data and see numbers. You look at data and see human patterns. The evidence is solid, Mr. Cross," Laura had replied, keeping her voice firm. "You're going away for a very long time." Cross had leaned forward, the heavy chains clanking against the steel table. "Prisons are made of brick and mortar, Laura. They decay, but a mind like mine doesn't forget. One day, the rain will fall, the lines will go quiet, and I will test your human patterns again." For 10 long years, Laura had tried to bury that memory. She had believed the heavy steel gates of state penitentiary would keep him locked away forever. She had been wrong. Cross hadn't spent those 10 years breaking down. He had spent every single day perfecting his final act of vengeance. Laura took a deep, silent breath. She kept her headset plugged in, but reached down and slid a heavy steel paper cutter blade out of a desk drawer, hiding it under her sleeve. "Julian," Laura said into the MIC, making her voice sound broken and defeated. "Please, don't do this. I'll delete the original forensic files from the state archive. I'll wipe your record right now from the main server." "It's too late for bargains, Laura," the voice replied. "You took 10 years of my life. Now I take yours." Across the room, the hooded man stood up from his desk, holding his phone to his ear, preparing to hit the master override key on his laptop to trigger the gas valve at her house. "Sergeant Miller, now!" Laura screamed at the top of her lungs, ripping her headset off. Sergeant Miller and 2 armed facility security guards rounded the corner of the cubicle aisle, weapons drawn. "Police, drop the phone. Hands on your head." Julian Cross turned around with a cold, psychotic smile. He didn't drop the phone. Instead, he reached for the enter key on his laptop to execute the deadly command. Laura didn't hesitate. She sprinted across the floor, vaulting over a row of desks, and slammed her entire body weight into Cross. They both crashed heavily onto the hard linoleum floor, rolling past the server racks. Cross grabbed Laura by the throat, pinning her down, his eyes wide with unhinged rage. "You're too late, Laura. The signal is sending." Struggling for air, Laura raised her right hand and drove the steel paper cutter blade directly into Cross's. Cross screamed in pain, loosening his grip. Sergeant Miller tackled him to the ground, slamming metal handcuffs over his wrists, while two security guards pulled Laura to her feet. Laura scrambled onto her knees, grabbed Cross's laptop from the floor, and slammed her hand on the spacebar, canceling the remote gas command with 2 seconds to spare. 3 miles away from 404 Elm Street, SWAT Tactical Unit 7 was roaring through the flooded suburban avenues at 80 miles per hour. Heavy raindrops slammed against the armored windshield of the Baycat tactical vehicle. Inside the rear compartment, 6 heavily armed officers in black tactical gear were checking their night vision optics and suppressed rifles. Lieutenant David Ramirez adjusted his tactical headset. "Dispatch, this is Tactical 7. We are 90 seconds out from Elm Street. What is the status of the threat inside the residence?" Back at the dispatch console, Laura clutched her headset, her eyes darting between the GPS tactical tracker and the hooded man sitting 30 feet behind her in the dispatch center. "Tactical 7, be advised," Laura spoke into her MIC, keeping her voice dropped to a low whisper so Cross wouldn't hear her over the ambient office noise. "Intruder inside the home is armed with heavy iron tools. Primary suspect Cross is controlling remote digital overrides from an external terminal. Do not use electronic door breaches. The house gas lines may be rigged to trigger on electrical surge." "Copy that, dispatch," Ramirez replied. "We go silent and manual. Flank team taking the rear garden, stack team taking the front porch." Outside 404 Elm Street, the black SWAT vehicle pulled up onto the wet curb without headlights or sirens. 6 tactical officers moved like shadows across the rain-soaked lawn, their boots silent on the grass. Through her monitor, Laura watched the thermal heat signature map feed from the SWAT drone hovering above her house. She could see the glowing red outlines of 4 officers surrounding her home, while inside, the thermal signature of the armed intruder moved slowly through the living room toward the stairs. The final confrontation was seconds away, both at her home and inside the very dispatch room where she sat today. At precisely 2:28 a.m., 4 SWAT officers breached the front door of 404 Elm Street. Inside the home, they apprehended Cross's accomplice in the hallway before he could reach the upstairs bedrooms. Mark and 7-year-old Lily were awakened by the sound of police officers securing the residence, completely unharmed. 10 minutes later, Laura arrived at her home in a police escort. The street was filled with flashing red and blue lights, reflecting off the wet pavement under the pouring rain. As Laura stepped out of the cruiser, Mark ran out of the front door holding Lily in his arms. Laura ran to them, throwing her arms around both of them, sobbing uncontrollably as she held her daughter tight against her chest. Lily wrapped her small arms around her mother's neck. "Mommy, why are there so many police cars outside?" "It's okay, baby," Laura wept, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Everything is okay now." Mommy handled the call. Across town at the Central Precinct, Julian Cross and his accomplice were locked away in maximum security solitary confinement, facing life sentences with no possibility of parole. Over the next 72 hours, a federal investigation revealed that Cross had spent 3 years planning the revenge plot from inside prison, utilizing rogue hackers to infiltrate city infrastructure. But his scheme had failed because he underestimated a mother's instinct and an operator's courage under fire. Sitting in her living room 3 days later, watching the sun break through the clouds over Elm Street, Laura held a warm cup of tea. Her headset lay on the table beside her, She knew that every night, thousands of calls would come in from people facing their darkest hours. But no matter how dark the storm became, she would always be there to answer.